Hello and thanks for joining us and still staying with us. If you're just joining, this is our special broadcast celebrating the Republic of Zambia's 58th year anniversary. The first half of the program, we did look at the politics and history of the Republic of Zambia. And we still have quite a way to go before we get to our final destination. It's now time for us to switch gears and look at the economic transformation of the Republic of Zambia.
All right, now before we go into the package, we will be introducing our guests who will be joining us. We have Kelvin Chisanga, economist from Lusaka, Zambia, and we also have Linowe Muwela, development studies lecturer, Livingstone, Zambia. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Before we go into the questions we have for you, we will be looking into this package that will talk about the governance and the economic growth of the country.
Zambia's economic freedom score is 48.7, making its economy the 154th freest in the 2022 index. Zambia is ranked 36th among 47 countries in the sub-Saharan Africa region, and its overall score is below the regional and world averages. During the past half-decade, load in 2019 contracted in 2020 due to a default and then resumed in 2021. In 2020, Zambia opted to bow out of a $42.5 million Eurobond repayment, becoming the first African nation to default on its debt in the COVID-19 era under the former president Edgar Lungu, before the current president Hakainde Hichilema took office. The International Monetary Fund affirms that the Southern African country is seeking $8.4 billion of cash debt relief from 2022 to 2025, but the lender emphasized that it needs to bring down its debt service to revenue ratio to 14% by 2025 and then maintain that level on average until 2031, compared to 61% now.
We are proud to support the Zambian government's actions aimed at restoring macroeconomic stability, increasing much-needed social spending, and strengthening economic governance and transparency. Just this year, Zambia has introduced free education and hired 41,000 additional education and health workers and implemented reforms to improve transparency.
Zambia has won approval from the International Monetary Fund Board for a $1.3 billion assistance package, and the president said he is on track to turn the economy around. After his first budget speech in office, he had this to say.
First budget, which kicked in 26 days ago, we've been able to deliver free education from primary to secondary school. The ruling part then, when we were in opposition, said HH was lying, it was impossible. That was a gimmick. We've done it. This is our first budget.
President Hakainde Hichilema said he expects its Zambia economy to grow at 4% per year in the medium term and is focused on resolving the country's debt crisis. Zambia's economy has been growing rapidly due to expansion of copper mining industry and agriculture diversification. However, fast population growth and systemic youth unemployment remains Zambia's main economic challenge. The World Bank says Zambia's GDP is projected to grow by 3.8% over 2022 to 2024, buoyed by an improved macroeconomic environment, a positive copper price outlook, and stable and predictable mining policy environment, as well as improved electricity supply. This outlook is anchored in the government's implementation of macro-fiscal reforms it outlined in its 2023 to 2025 medium-term budget, which is aimed at restoring fiscal sustainability and credibility, reorienting expenditure away from inefficient subsidies to more social spending, and bringing public services closer to the communities. The implementation of structural reforms aimed at removing market distortions and bringing financial sustainability to the energy sector, electricity and petroleum, improving transparency, and fighting corruption will also be critical to achieving this growth path.
Well, that was an extensive report on Zambia's current economy. And, we're looking at 58 years so far, and we're looking at how much Zambia has grown both in governance and in economy. Now, before we go, we went on the break to play out the report. We talked about our guests who will be joining us. Of course, myself and Gbenga would not be doing this alone. We have we have Kelvin Chisanga, who is the economist joining us from Lusaka in Zambia, and we also have Linowe Muwela, the development studies lecturer from Livingstone in Zambia. Currently, we have Linowe with us. Thank you so much for joining us, Linowe. Are you there?
Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
My pleasure. Thank you, and happy Independence to you. All right, Linowe, if you can hear me, let's just go straight into it. I would like us to spotlight the governance in Zambia, as we already know. Now, I will be looking at the debt rate at which Zambia is going. Now, we know that Zambia received a $1.3 billion IMF bailout recently to rebuild over 3 years. That is $400 million a year. And meanwhile, Zambia is currently owing $17 billion of foreign debt and also 2 billion kwacha of local debt. Now, it goes without saying that this is just a drop in the ocean compared to how much of debt Zambia is into. But then there is a school of thought that says that the reason why they're partnering with the IMF is not exactly because these debts can be, erased at once. But then there is a certain level of credibility that comes with being partners with IMF, because IMF represents the G7 countries. Now, I want to know your thoughts on this. Do you think this strategy is something that they need? Do you think it's something that can actually work out?
Thank you so much. I think the IMF is not the biggest issue about the IMF deal is not about getting money to pay back, but it's about helping the country restructure its debt. You know that over the past 10 years, the country has been amassing debt at an unsustainable level, to the point that we are actually in default right now. So bringing IMF on board is going to help us restructure the debt, and of course, bringing the IMF on board also brings credibility and reduces on the cost of debt that we get. So yes, this is a big plus for the country. This is a big plus for Zambia, because it will help us as we are restructuring debt, as we talk to lenders, as well as delaying certain payments, so that some of the money can be used towards social services and other areas of the economy that need this cash injection right now. Of course, I think from the report, we've heard how we've not been doing so well. Our GDP has been stunted for almost 20 years now. If you compare to countries like Kenya, that we had the same GDP 20 years ago, they are now 4 times the size of our country. So I think at this moment, what we need the most is restructuring our debt, and let the government get money and put in sectors of the economy that are going to help grow the economy one block at a time.
Okay. Now, Linowe, since 1964, your country, Zambia, has enjoyed stability. It hasn't been bedeviled with some of the challenges, the political upheaval, civil wars, military coups of some of your neighbors. Why hasn't this peace been able to translate into much bigger economic progress for the country? Quite a lot of people still live below the poverty line in Zambia.
We've been independent for 58 years, and it's sad that despite the stability that the country has had, we've not seen much. We've not seen much of. We've not seen much of economic growth. We've not seen much of economic growth, basically, and I think one of the reasons is the over dependency on copper. We've seen the over dependence on copper such that when there's a serious dip in prices for copper, because we are dependent on copper, everything fails. Everything, we can't get the money that we plan for in the budget, and that's why the government has been talking about diversity. We get into agriculture, we get into value addition when it comes to different aspects of our agriculture, as well as minerals, where we get to add value to copper rather than exporting it in its raw form the way we do it. So I think we've not diversified our economy, and I think that is one of the biggest problems that we've had, and that's why we've failed to grow at the rate we are supposed to grow.
All right, thank you so much for that, Linowe. Now, while we spoke, our second guest joined us, Kelvin Chisanga from Lusaka in Zambia. He's an economist. Thank you so much, Kelvin, for joining us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Sorry for the inconvenience. I should have joined you.
We're happy to
Totally
have you.
fine. Thank you so much for joining us,
Yeah,
and
thank you.
happy 58th anniversary to Zambia.
Thank you.
All right, Kevin, let's go straight into it now. I will be asking you this question. I mean, you're just joining us, but let's bring you on board. Now, we understand that there is a historic young demographic in Zambia, and it's safe to say that the country is for the youth. But then some months ago, Hakainde Hichilema hinted that it is quite hard to govern a set of people who are unskilled. In other words, he's saying that the youth are unemployed, but still unskilled. Now, are there certain measures that are being put in place to ensure that the youth get, enough maybe jobs to go round, and also maybe a skill acquisition program that is being arranged for them? Is there something that the government is planning to do as regards that?
Mitigative intervention that the current government is making, and also when you look at the current governance system, where they are trying to augment some of the key fundamentals in regards to education and skills development, it has made one of the key factors that they are trying to actually push. If you may be privy to know that the current planning budget has actually got a very stimulus package when it comes to education and healthcare packages, of which these are fundamental keys that we are able to see, where they have actually made a lot of commitment in terms of trying to see how best we can actually bring the enterprising concept of education. And much more, even just looking at the information of education policy is one of the key fundamental elements that they're trying to see to just bring everything to the context of a productive sense of life. And as we speak right now, there's been a quite number of upscaled measures that are being taken place in terms of trying to put education as a core center in trying to make things work out in the areas of trying to augment an employment level. Obviously, we are talking of 8 million being unemployed right now, as we can actually see it, and much more when you look at the activity that the government is putting in place. They're trying to make things work out in a way that education is blessed to be a premium demand right now as we speak, because we know that once we get the productive sense of education, we should be able to actually augment some of the key fundamentals that we are able to see right now as we speak.
Thank you very much, Kelvin. Now, I'd like to bring in Linowe. President Hakainde Hichilema has been hailed as a miracle worker, transforming the economy in record time, from defaulting on his loans to what he's done, and also making education free. But some are uneasy, as they say his fight against corruption is one-sided and is going after officials and former figures in the last administration of President Edgar Lungu. What do you make of the anti-corruption drive of President Hakainde Hichilema? That question is directed to Linowe.
Looking at the type of commitment that they have made in regarding to curb economic leakages, I think it's a right direction that they have taken so far, considering that even when you look at the budget that has been brought for the nation, considering the current budget, running budget, and the one that is anticipated for next year, they are basically putting a lot of austerity measures in terms of trying to see the expenditure columns to remain quite in tandem. And it may be pretty true that even when you look at the current running budget, we have seen few leakages that are taking place in terms of financial resources, and that in itself entails to say that there is a seriousness that is being committed there, and even just a fortitude of police treatment in terms of expenditure columns are quite lying in tandem, of which we have seen that when it comes to the columns on revenue as well as the expenditure side of it, we have seen that they have remained within the target line. And that entails to say that the productive sense of what we're trying to put in Zambia is actually going to augment good effect as we go in a long-term processing. As we can even see that they have made sure that some of the key fundamentals like education, healthcare, social protection, and a few other, even when you look at the economic welfare of policies, I think they have really done quite tremendous in terms of trying to push into this positive direction.
Okay, I would like Linowe to answer the same question. What do you make of President Hakainde Hichilema's fight against corruption? A lot of people have said it's one-sided and is going after officials of the former administration of President Edgar Lungu. What's your take on it?
Please just come again.
I want to know your take, Linowe, on President Hakainde Hichilema's fight against corruption. A lot of observers have said that he's only going after President Edgar Lungu's ministers and officials in his administration, and it's an uneven and one-sided anti-corruption crusade. What do you make of this, Linowe?
Unfortunately, some people may look at it as one-sided fight, but what we are looking at here is how were people's resources used? Who is responsible for handling public funds? And who was responsible at that particular time? So if you check, who was in government, who were the leaders who were in charge of these public resources, people from the Patriotic Front or the Patriotic Front government. So there's no way you can try and say this is a one-sided fight. Who else is going to be followed? What we are talking about here is we want prudent use of resources. So who was in charge of these resources? It was officials in government. It doesn't matter what political party or what political inclination one has or has. What we're talking about, you were given resources, okay? You were given resources. How did you use these resources? If you didn't use these resources prudently, where did you take the money? Why didn't you follow, for example, procurement procedures? Or why did you have to spend $20 million on a project that is worth $5 million? So there's really no, I don't see any problem in this fight, because the people that are being followed at the moment are people that were in charge of public resources, and it is just in order that those people are audited. How did you amass the wealth that you have? I'll just answer the question. I don't think it is a problem. If I buy a car today, I need to show proof of where I got the money. Okay? If I have resources in my account today, I need to show that I worked for this money, I did this, and I got it from these sources. So here what we're talking about are public funds. Public funds were pilfered, okay? So what the public is interested in is we want our money back. I think that's my take on that.
Okay.
Okay. Now, Kelvin, let's talk about the resources of Zambia. Now, we know that COVID-19 has further pushed the country into a precarious situation, but that's not to say that the country is not rich in copper, as we all know. And talking about copper, we know that they export about 73% of copper, and that's like the major dependency ratio on that natural resources. Now, in tandem with that, Hichilema's administration has said that they are going to capitalize on the resources they have, which are the people, of course, water and copper. I would like to ask, how is that going so far? And how much of dependency can Zambia actually have on copper export?
Okay, the policy treatment in terms of mining tax regime has actually been quite predictable, and it's something that we are now able to see that we are basically treating this sector with the much care, despite even having some dramatic changes that we also seeing from the global market. But obviously, Zambia has really taken itself into this direction where we basically had some shadow boxing of mining tax regime, which actually basically took us to the level where we are as of now. But considering the buoyancy that we have seen in the current government, where they have taken a policy measure and modality right in place with a positive of consistency, it's actually spanning out very well, because obviously when you look at the current planning budget, where they pronounced mineral loyalty, and they have actually maintained it, but obviously they're looking at trying to fine-tune where they want to make some favorability in terms of small-scale farmers and artisanal, which is actually basically going to just have just a bit of panel beating, but maintaining the same tax regime, which is actually a positive sign in this case, because obviously if we are basically having some sharp changes of copper prices on the international market, we still have the copper performing a super cycle. So basically, they have maintained the atmosphere in terms of the mining taxi police corridor, which is basically giving a positive side. And obviously, we have even seen the investment projects that are coming to this sector. And when you look at even just the overall step that is also taking place with the issue of trying to bring other sources of economic sectoral basis, I think this is what we are also able to see, that they have made some commitment in agriculture. They are also looking forward to accelerate effort in mining itself as well. But obviously, the mining concept, they are trying to bring better addition, because over time, Zambia has never been, giving birth to a positive nature of mining output. What we have done so far is that we basically export raw materials. So we are now looking at trying to bring the aspect of linkages, where we have signed some contractual arrangement with the Democratic Republic of Congo to bring manufacturing of batteries right in Zambia as a model to attract ourselves to the electromagnetic or electromobility industry that is coming up. And much more, when you look at it, the other balancing scale that we are also looking, we are looking at trying to upscale agriculture. We are very much well cognizant that the climatic situation right now is one of the key fundamental elements that is actually bringing a lot of unpredictability on the market. And much more, even when you look at the food security aspect or crisis, it's because of the climate change that is also underplaying all these factors. So what we are trying to do is that in the medium term, in terms of the national budget expenditure framework, we are planning to have about 40 dams which will be able to augment the issues of irrigation development. So instead of us depending on rain-fed agriculture system, we're going now to have agriculture, activities taking place at each and every stage of life throughout the whole entire calendar year. That in itself bringing a different aspect of production and development for Zambia. So basically, we're looking at the different set of life in terms of trying to bring economic transformation and also bring job creation as well. So we are basically also trying to bring the aspect of human and social development in the country. We are also looking at issues of trying to utilize fully the capacity of agriculture, the capacity of tourism, the capacity of manufacturing. If anything, Zambia has been facing a very critical situation when it comes to the manufacturing. We're just basically having it at 9%. So we are basically looking at trying to bring the aspect of value addition at all across of economic structure, be it in agriculture, be it in tourism, be it in mining, every part of our economic situation, we are trying to bring the value addition as the key composite so that we're able to actually move forward. That's what we are trying now to see. So basically, the whole essence is that we are looking at the best way in which we can bring economic transformation in those sectors that are concerned with the economy.
Thank you very much, Kelvin. I'd like to bring in Linowe. Now, Linowe, is very instructive that on a day like this, that the Republic of Zambia is celebrating its 58th independence anniversary. We talk about and x-ray its relationship with the People's Republic of China. A lot of debt that is owed by Zambia is to China. China has been a very important business partner with Zambia. Lots of the infrastructure projects were financed by loans from China, and the Chinese and Zambian bilateral relations is quite strong. But some people are looking at it as a second wave of colonialism, a sort of debt trap diplomacy. How would you rate what's your assessment of the relationship between Zambia and China?
I think China, almost everyone in the world is intertwined and entangled with China, whether production or supply of anything. And at the moment, China has been giving out loans, to various countries, and Zambia, of course, is one of the countries that has received massive loans from China, and I think that's those are some of the problems that we have gotten into in this unsustainable debt problem that we have.
Permit me to interrupt you. You said these loans have brought you into some of those problems, but those loans were used for development and infrastructure projects. Would you say these projects are nowhere to be found? And can't you point to a few benefits of this relationship with China? Is it not a favorable situation for Zambia?
Unfortunately, some of the loans come with negative implications should you fail to pay. I think we've seen that from other countries. We need development, and of course we need the infrastructure, because we are very much behind. We've seen massive road infrastructure that have come on, and the ease of traveling, of course, transportation of goods around the country. Unfortunately, I think the problem is the conditions that are attached to this debt. That is a problem that we've seen in other countries. For example, those infrastructure that may have been built being tied to the monies that was borrowed, such that should you fail to pay, these infrastructures are gotten, and I think that is the fear that we have. Yes, we need the money, but I think we have failed with the homegrown solutions or to raise money from ourselves. So we have to go and borrow. But I think the biggest fear is what happens should you fail to pay. And of course, as I said, we've seen certain projects, not in our country yet, but we've seen certain projects in other countries, certain infrastructures that have been that have been gotten, that have been built using this money, being grabbed more like collateral, and they are no longer in state hands.
All right, very well noted, Linowe. Thank you so much. Now, while we discuss the governance and economy of Zambia, we've got live feeds from Lusaka, the capital city of Zambia, as they celebrate the 58th anniversary of the country. We can see people dancing. And of course, we see the president seated being entertained. Now, let me come back to you,
Linowe. The president is actually seated with the president of Namibia, who I guess is a special guest, President Gbenga, sitting right beside President Hakainde Hichilema.
Of course, you know, he mentioned earlier that he was going to be there to celebrate with them, so we love to see that, and we are happy that they are being entertained. Now, we will look at the live feed shortly, and then we'll be right back to continue the discussion, so please take a look.
Round of applause once again, ladies and gentlemen, for the Lusaka Select. I think I speak for everybody when I say if all traffic police officers were as jovial and dancing like this particular gentleman, I think we wouldn't be scared when we see them on the road.
I totally agree.
All right, I would say beautiful performance. We didn't get to see much of that, but we love to see that the president is seated and being entertained. Now, let me come back to you, Linowe. Let's talk about the governance and the people participation in governance. Now, that is a major challenge that a lot of countries face. We see the government doing their thing, and then we see the people being oblivious of so many of their actions. So I would like to ask, 58 years now, how would you rate the level of participation of the people in governance? And when I say participation, I don't necessarily mean that they are being involved in the governance, but I mean being involved in, knowledge of what is going on in the country and how the government is, going about doing their things, especially when it comes to tackling the loan. So how would you rate the people participation in Zambia?
Thank you so much for that. Unfortunately, I would say the participation is still quite low. Interest and participation in governance issues and basically civil matters that we've had. If we look at elections, the past elections, I think we had one of the highest turnouts when it comes to the percentage in voting of citizens around. We have a lot of issues that our citizens still need to be taught, need to be informed about. But I think it starts from inculcating these values when people are children. From schools and as they are growing up. At the moment, I think the numbers are still very low when it comes to participation in politics, participation and interest in various or information on how to access certain public services. So we still have a challenge in that. But we've seen a growth in organizations that are trying to inculcate these values in the populations. For example, organizations like ACA that has been going around and trying to tell people how to access and how to use what we call as CDF here, Constituency Development Fund. Because most of our people had no idea or have no idea what to do, how to go about that. But I think with the internet, with the growth of social media, with the coming on of these organizations, we are seeing the percentage of participation going up, because that is what we need actually. We need more people to participate in matters of the country, matters of politics, matters of democracy, as well as governance.
Thank you very much, Linowe Muwela. I'd like to say a very big thank you to you for joining us on this special broadcast. We do appreciate your contribution. I'd also like to say thank you to Kelvin Chisanga, who joined us from the Zambian capital, Lusaka, who was part of this segment of the broadcast. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, gentlemen. Well, it's still a beautiful 2-hour program of discussing Zambia's independence 58th anniversary, and we are happy to be talking about that here on News Central Television. Gbenga, Zambia is a country that I would really love to visit, especially Victoria Falls. I mean, I always talk about the beautiful, tourist attractions in different countries, and I would love to explore that.
And it's a very peaceful country and very stable, so it would be nice to go there, spend some kwachas, and create fond memories.
Most definitely.
You're still watching our special broadcast on News Central Television here, celebrating Zambia at 58. We're not done yet. In the third part of the program, we'll be looking at security in Zambia. It's been hailed as a beacon of peace. How do they do this in a region that is volatile? We'll be looking at all of this and more when we come back from this break. Do stay with us. You're watching News Central Television.